Very interesting and controversial Nintendo Switch 2 news has just dropped. Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we have much to discuss regarding Nintendo and the Switch 2. We have some perplexing comments from a prior Nintendo developer. May have just gotten some insight into why Nintendo has been feuding with Amazon all this time. We've gotten a little bit more info as to what's going on with the whole game keycard situation, some concerning news about pricing going up, more details on Donkey Kong Bananza, some curious newly discovered Nintendo patents, and some conflicting info on sales figures of the Switch 2. There's much to get into today. Let me tell you about this Ugreen Nexode 45-watt retractable charger provided to me by Ugreen, the sponsor for today's video. This fast charger is compact and easily fits into the palm of your hands. The prongs also close in so you can easily fit this in anywhere, including some Switch 2 carrying cases when on the go. At 45 watts, you're going to see some efficient fast charging to multiple devices at a time. It can work for your laptops, tablets, phones, and of course, the Switch family of systems. There's a USB-A port to connect the cable that comes with your Pro and Switch 2 GameCube controllers, or if you would like to charge a second controller or forgot your USB-A to USB-C cable, you also can use the retractable USB-C cable to connect. And as you can see here, the cable reaches quite far, which you might find to be useful with those hard to reach outlets. And if you've left your Switch 2 charger, you can use this charger, which can match the output of Nintendo's AC adapter, and of course, it would work for other applicable devices that use a USB-C port. And then you still have a third connection if you have something else that needs a charge, like maybe your phone, for example. It's an especially useful charger when you have multiple devices during your travels. This is a nice, quality, compact fast charger that comes with a 24-month warranty, so I definitely think you should check this one out in the description below. So Takaya Imamura, someone who used to work at Nintendo, who's responsible for a lot of the designs for both Star Fox, F-Zero, and has even helped out with Zelda in the past, said some interesting things about his history with Nintendo. So here on Twitter, I'm translating the post here, what he initially said. I really felt that Nintendo is full of amazing people, and I was constantly thinking about how to prove my own worth among them. A sense of inferiority was always lingering somewhere. And then he also said a little bit later, when I left the company, it's true that I felt a sense of freedom as if I had been released from the inferiority complex I'd carried for years. But at the same time, there was also a loneliness in thinking, I won't be able to work with these people anymore. That said, with only a few years left until retirement anyway, and since game development often takes many years, I felt a stronger desire to move forward at my own pace, doing more freely creative things. And so some people are going to take this to mean that Takaya Imamura is speaking ill of Nintendo and how it works behind the scenes. I don't necessarily interpret it that way. I look at what Takaya Imamura has been saying here, and I think this is someone that may have been wrestling with his own demons, because I think he's a very talented person. But this may also speak to just the amount of sheer amazing creative talent and incredible things that are going on behind the scenes at Nintendo, because we've heard similar comments like this in the past. As brought up in this My Nintendo News article, they bring up other developers who have said some similar things. Like here they write, Shinji Watanabe saying that it was like working with celestial beings, or Ken Watanabe, who also chimed in and said his experience at Nintendo was both rewarding and extremely draining, or Miura Koichi, who also went viral in a post from 2023 for saying that Nintendo was like a haven for geniuses and superhumans, but for an average person like me, it was hell. And from what I understand, none of these different developers were fired from Nintendo. I don't think this is a situation where Nintendo's overworking their developers and putting them through crunch or something like that, as we've seen happen in other places in the industry. In fact, we've heard a lot of positive things about how Nintendo treats their employees. But it does seem like that there is a great deal of talent and high expectation in Nintendo to make amazing games, and perhaps that pressure and the amount of talent there does wear on some people. It isn't for everyone. Which, if you really think about it, this is Nintendo. They make some of the best games ever. But in order to be the best, in order to put together some of these amazing creations that are historically great, There needs to be some special things happening here. There needs to be a high expectation. There needs to be a great deal of quality. And so perhaps some people may feel a bit overwhelmed. But something else I think is worth noting, none of these people are speaking ill of Nintendo. They are speaking fondly of Nintendo, but they're simply saying it wasn't a great fit for them long term. In other news, we've recently gotten an ESRB rating for Elden Ring Tarnished Edition for Nintendo Switch 2. The rating is a mature rating, no shock there, but some people are wondering if this might mean a release date for this version of the game could be announced fairly soon. Tomorrow, we are going to be getting the Bandai Namco Summer Showcase, so perhaps we'll be seeing the game there, and if not, maybe we'll finally get a release date at maybe a Nintendo Direct in the not-so-distant future. Fingers crossed. Now, diving into a bit more controversial news, Bloomberg has reported that Nintendo stopped Amazon US sales as third-party sellers were offering games lower than advertised rates. And so here, continuing, it says, they did this by buying the games in bulk from Southeast Asia and exporting them to the United States for cheaper than the recommended retail price. Amazon seemingly failed to stop this from happening, so Nintendo decided that the best solution from their point of view was to stop selling their products. And here we have a quote, Amazon tried to assuage Nintendo by offering to attach labels to products that guarantee they are authentic. Amazon uses a technique to assure shoppers products aren't counterfeits and to help it track merchandise, but the offer wasn't sufficient, the person said, and Nintendo ultimately opted to pull its products from Amazon in the US. And so this may explain why we can't buy Nintendo products officially on Amazon anymore here in the US. You'd have to get it from some sort of third-party seller. But something else to note here, Bloomberg reached out to both companies, Amazon and Nintendo, and they both denied the report. So, I guess we don't have hard confirmation of this, but Nintendo or Amazon may never confirm this, and there may be other details going on within this communication between Amazon and Nintendo that they are trying to work out, which is why they are denying the report, because there are other little details here that add a little bit more context to what's going on. So it's not entirely dishonest to deny the report, because there's other things to consider, but I think there's a very good chance that Bloomberg heard this from reliable info, because Bloomberg is a reliable site, so why else would they be reporting something like this? Some people might attack Nintendo for doing this, like how dare they take down their own games from selling on Amazon just because there are other companies trying to undercut their own game sales here, but I think they're well within their right to do that. If you're releasing a new game day one and it's priced at a certain price, and then day one you can already get it cheaper than what it's supposed to be, that is not good for your value. That is not good for your sales. So from a business perspective, it makes sense, and it does seem like Nintendo and Amazon need to work something out here. In perhaps even more controversial news, though, and this is official information that's not being denied by Nintendo, we have an official Nintendo Switch pricing update. Pricing for the original Nintendo Switch family of systems and products in Canada will change based on market conditions. These include Nintendo Switch OLED model, Nintendo Switch Lite, physical and digital Nintendo Switch games, and Nintendo Switch accessories. Other Nintendo products, including Amiibo and Nintendo Switch Online memberships, will also experience price changes. Please note, this pricing change does not apply to the Nintendo Switch 2 system, accessories, or software. Pricing information specific to the Canadian market will be shared at Nintendo.com on August 1st. So in Canada, Switch 1 prices are going up. And as we see here shared by Warrior64 on Twitter from a Reddit post, it looks like we are seeing different prices for at least NSO already going up, being listed here. As you see, for 1 month it's gone up $1, for 3 months it's gone up $2, for 12 months it's gone up $5, and the same for the family membership as well. So yes, prices are going up here, and this is due to tariffs. And the fact is happening to Switch 1, a console that's been out for over 8 years. I think what this is really telling of is the economic climate overall. A lot of people are going to blame Nintendo for this, but it's not just Nintendo we're seeing this with. Companies have been raising prices for their games and consoles lately, and this is because of the overall economic climate. They're selling their games and systems and accessories at a certain price, but if it's more expensive to get those things out there to the public in stores, then how do they make up for this from a business perspective? How do they stay in the green? By increasing the price. And so when we're seeing something like this happen to Switch 1, a console has been around for years, we're even waiting for a price drop for, and instead we may be getting a price increase. Well, at least from what I can tell, this is an unprecedented scenario. Not prices going up, because that has happened before, and it's unfortunate, but the fact that we went over 8 years, the entire lifespan of the Switch 1, without getting one official widespread price drop, and now we're talking about different regions officially getting price increases over 8 years later. By August, that would be basically 8.5 years later, which is insane. But I don't personally blame Nintendo for this. I think this is an economic climate situation. It is unfortunate. I think it goes to show that we got to be more cautious about our spending for sure. And at the end of the day, you still vote with your dollar, right? If sales diminish, then perhaps companies will have to figure something else out, including Nintendo. In even more controversial news, we've heard a little bit more about the game keycard situation. So for those who don't know, a game keycard is a type of Switch 2 cartridge that doesn't actually have the game on the card, but it's just a key for when you plug it into a Switch 2, it allows you to download the game onto your console. And what's great about this is that it allows you to at least be able to trade, sell the game, borrow it and such for other systems. But the disadvantage of it is that you do have to download the game upon putting the cartridge into your console, so there's a delay from playing it immediately, and then also, you don't actually own the game, as many people will say. You just have the cartridge that doesn't have the game on there. If there are no servers, or you lose access to that, you will not be able to download the game if you haven't downloaded it yet onto your system. But anyways, from Nintendo's recent shareholders meeting, we got some translations on some things that were said, including what Furukawa said about game keycards and their relationship with third parties. He said that game keycards were conceived as an option for third-party publishers to bring their games to retail, and that they had discussed that game keycards could inevitably see physical game ownership on the platform reduced compared to its predecessor. He concluded by saying that Nintendo will work hard to help third parties sell their games at retail to consumers. So Nintendo is on the record for doing what they can to maintain physical sales here. What we've come to understand is that game key cards were created because of third parties wanting to be involved in Switch 2. Nintendo created game key cards so third parties could actually bring their games to the console, otherwise they wouldn't be there. And so some people look at game key cards as a bad thing, but I would point out that game key cards, in my opinion, are not too different from discs, where you have to put it into your console and then wait for the install before being able to play the game. Because once the game is on your console, you can play it. It may not be as great as having the whole game on the cartridge and be able to play the game from the get-go immediately, but I can also see how some people might be concerned because game key cards may dissuade even more people to buy games physically, and they may lean even more so digitally. Even though I think if you're on the side of physical, game key cards are still better than getting a game digitally. The only advantage the digital has is, well, convenience. But there is still more news to get in here that is kind of controversial depending on how you look at it. So we've gotten previews for Donkey Kong Bananza today, and a lot of people are saying very, very positive things about the game. It's all wonderful. There are some minor gripes that people have pointed out, like there are still some frame rate issues, there are some different camera issues, but for the most part, people are very positive on the game, and these issues do not seem to take away from the experience for most. But what has also been widely reported today is that the Super Mario Odyssey team is the developer for Donkey Kong Bananza, which many people expected. But if you've been following me for a while, you may already know what I think, and what I've been thinking is that it's sort of the Mario Odyssey team, but not quite actually. It's actually a new team formed from the younger talent of the Mario Odyssey team, and sure, there may be other more experienced people involved, like with producing and directing the game. But that's in my thought process because I think that's what makes the most sense, because you still want to have a dedicated team working on 3D Mario. You also want to expand your development teams here so you can make different games, including new Donkey Kong games moving forward, perhaps a dedicated Donkey Kong developer. And we've heard this idea supported by a few different places, such as DK Vine a few years ago, that there would be a new team to make Donkey Kong games moving forward. And even more recently from Kiwi Talks, that it is a new team making Donkey Kong. But these reports seem to suggest otherwise. However, let me read you what Andy Robinson said here on Twitter, who is the CEO of Video Games Chronicle, one of the people who put out this article on what we're hearing here. Nintendo's confirmed to VGC that Donkey Kong Bananza's developer is the same team as Super Mario Odyssey, but it won't disclose the director or key staff. Continuing, a spokesperson confirmed the studio behind the game is based in Tokyo, seemingly confirming Nintendo EPD Tokyo as Bananza's developer. So saying it's based in Tokyo isn't the same thing as saying it's the Mario Odyssey team. Just want to point that out. But anyways, however, they would not clarify whether Odyssey's same creators were working on DK or who the director is. VGC has asked for clarification on what this means for future 3D Mario games. Super Mario Odyssey was released nearly 8 years ago. If Bananza is indeed developed by the Odyssey team, fans might have to wait even longer for the mascot's next adventure. Personally, based on Nintendo's tight disclosure and my time with the game, I suspect that Bananza might be the work of a younger team inside Nintendo EPD, so we might yet see a 3D Mario game on Switch 2 in the near future. So this is where I think specific wording and clear understanding of translations and all, and semantics, all that stuff, it's important to get it all straight, because if you say the Super Mario Odyssey team is working on Donkey Kong Bananza, that will lead some people to believe that there is no one working on 3D Mario, therefore 3D Mario is many years away. Yet historically speaking, 3D Mario is always available early on into every single console generation. So to think that 8 years after Mario Odyssey, Nintendo's not even close to putting out a 3D Mario, that doesn't seem to make any sense, but that's what some people might interpret from this report here. Now, as Andy Robinson is saying when you read through his thread, he's not suggesting that. He thinks that there's a new batch of people, younger talent from the Mario Odyssey team making Donkey Kong Bananza, which is what myself and others have been arguing as of late, and there still is a core team working on 3D Mario. But looking at the actual article, just so we have full clarity on what's being said here, what's being reported, the news is confirmed during a media preview event for the Switch 2 game, in which Nintendo also said the studio behind the game is based in Tokyo. As for clarification, Nintendo would not confirm whether the same staff behind Odyssey were working on DK, or if it was a new group within the same company. Neither would it confirm the director of the game. So I just find this interesting that everyone's going around saying that it's the Mario Odyssey team. If this feels like a strong case of confirmation bias. That said, I do think elements of the Mario Odyssey team are involved with Bananza, but I think the truth is better. We have a new team working on Donkey Kong, and we still have the veteran team working on 3D Mario. But I guess the truth won't become fully apparent until these different games come out. Now, in some other interesting news, we are seeing from Nintendo Patents Watch here, they point out some different patents that Nintendo has put out there. So we see that there's one for a ray tracing method that allows per object reflection control, another ray tracing method that ensures correct reflection near screen edges, and a more performant shadow mapping technique. And here are the patents here up close. I'm not going to pretend like I fully understand what's going on here. I still find it interesting that we are seeing patents about ray tracing, presumably for Switch 2. We haven't seen too much ray tracing yet on Switch 2, but reportedly, according to Nvidia, it is something that the Switch 2 is capable of. So I'm very curious to see how Nintendo is going to utilize this in the future, especially if they have particular patents on different ray tracing methods. Another interesting patent that's popped up here is this drag and drive patent here, and apparently this is how you can use a skateboard with a mouse, which is curious. You push forward to accelerate, tilt left and right to turn, press a button to crouch, lift controller to jump. So if you lift the mouse upwards, right, like this, you can cause it to jump. If you tilt it, it can actually see that you're tilting it like that. So that's just kind of interesting stuff here in terms of this tech that they're using. Very interesting what they're doing with the Joy-Cons and the mouse controls. I am curious to test this out in the not-so-distant future. But there seems to be some confusion going around regarding this latest report of Switch 2 sales. So as Nintendo Patents Watch points out here, the 5 million unit Switch 2 sales figure that's now going around was seen on Nintendo IR site as early as June 24th. Therefore, it can't be a real number for the quarter, but placeholder or projection. Reddit is going Reddit, but the gaming outlets should have done a bit more research before posting. So yes, a lot of people have been pointing out or reporting that Switch 2 has sold 5 million units. And as we see here on this Reddit post that initially put out this story, they have deleted the post, likely because they've found it to maybe not be the most reliable report there. And as GameRight is talking about here, there seems to be some confusion on what's going on. We're not sure if this is just like an accidental leak of how much Switch 2 was actually sold, a mistake, a projection, but Nintendo currently, what we understand, has not officially announced how many units Switch 2 has sold since the first few days. Now, I think Switch 2 likely has probably gone close to, if not already passing 5 million units sold worldwide. And I would bet that once we get to a full month of the Switch 2 being out there, so in just a few short days, I would not be surprised if Switch 2 has gone above 5 million units sold. Right now, demand is still very high for a Switch 2. You can't really find them too often in store shelves. If you do, you have an opportunity there. And with Donkey Kong Bananza coming on a few short weeks, I'm sure even more people are going to be very invested in picking up the console. And I still think a Nintendo Direct is happening fairly soon, so whatever's shown there will likely also further push people to pick up the console. But what do you all think? What do you make of all these different bits of news that I personally find both interesting and controversial? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.